Yo, what's up, everybody? It's your boy LB, back once again. Another day, another review. Album I want to talk about today, for me, is a very special album. It's from one of my favorite rappers, once again. And this would have to be the major label debut album of Mystikal, Mind the Mystikal, man, released in 1995 on Jive Records and Big Boy Records, which was a New Orleans based independent label that Mystikal was signed to early in his career. You know what I'm saying? This is pre No Limit. Yeah. Alright, man, so for those of y'all who may not know who Mystikal is, which I'm pretty sure everybody know who Mystikal is, man. He's a rapper from New Orleans, Louisiana, man. I think he started rapping like back in the late 80s, early 90s. But I think somewhere around there, around that time, he I think he went to the army. Yeah, somewhere around that time he went to the army or whatever. I think during Desert Storm or something like that. And I think before he was honorably discharged, I think he got up to like sergeant as a rank. But once he got out, he went back to rapping and everything like that. And before he came out with his album, he made a few appearances, for some label mates on Big Boy Records. And, eventually he dropped his self-titled debut album, Mystikal, on Big Boy Records, which consisted of 10 tracks or whatever. Then, of course, he dropped this album once he signed with Jive, which is pretty much a re-release of that album, but this has more tracks. But anyway, Mystikal probably best known for the song Shake Your Ass and Danger, and probably also for, his prison stint, where, he got locked up in prison for like, 6 or 7 years for like rape, sexual assault, or whatever. But, of course he's back now. Haven't really heard much from him lately, but, he is back out. But anyway, man, this was Mystikal's earliest career. This is Mystikal when he was at his rawest. You know what I'm saying? I don't think none of his albums have been as raw as Mind the Mystikal. But anyway, man, this record, it featured the singles Y'all Ain't Ready Yet, which was like the first single. I think that was more like a promotional single though, but it had a video and everything. Let's see, Beware, and probably the biggest song from this album was Here I Go. Let me tell you, man, growing up, man, I heard that song all the time, man. Everywhere I was at, man, every day in my neighborhood, man, I would hear people just coming through, just knocking Here I Go. That song to me is the epitome of crunk music. Epitome of crunk, man. And definitely, man, that song, if that song came on today, if they played that song in a club today, I mean, like real talk, if they played that song today, it would still get a club crunk. But that song, and along with the song called Beware, those songs were diss songs towards some artists on Cash Money Records. Like at the time, when Mystikal came out, his label and Cash Money Records, his label Big Boy Records and Cash Money, they were rivals. And the BGs, which was a group that that BG, who was then known as Lil Doogie, and Lil Wayne, who was known as Gangsta D at the time, it was a group that they had where they came out with an album called True Story, and they had a song on there called Fuck Big Boy. And them and another popular Cash Money Records artists at the time, UNLV, which stood for Uptown Niggas Living Violent. They were dissing Big Boy Records. So Mystikal retaliated. He came back at him on the song Beware and on the song called Here I Go. Both of those are great songs, man. Definitely get you. Here I Go, man. Like that's probably the best known song from this track. I mean, I think that was one of Mystikal's first biggest like hits, I think, man. But I know at least down south. I know at least in the South, man, that was a big hit in the South. It may not have been as huge as Shake Your Ass or Danger Man, but that song was a huge hit in the South. Cause I can tell you, everywhere I went, every neighborhood I would be at, man, every hood I would be in, man, people would roll through bumping that song, man, all the time, man. I heard that song everywhere. But anyway, man, this album also was like the beginning of like a few, like, I don't know, I guess you could say kind of something, kind of running gags or whatever. Something that's notable for a Mystikal record, man. The murder songs and the smoke songs. You know, every Mystikal album has had a smoke song, and almost every album's had a murder song except for the last album he did, Tarantula. But that album did have a smoke song. But anyway, man, Murder here is called Murderer. It's called Murderer. It was the first song in those series of songs that would be on his albums. The difference between this song, despite this song being called Murderer, this song really wasn't about his sister's killer. This song was actually, it was just talking about murder in general. Then again, listening to the hook, it might have been talking about murdering crooked cops. But I know it wasn't about him seeking revenge on his sister's killer. Those of y'all that are fans of Mystikal, y'all know the whole story about his sister, who was a singer. She was murdered by her boyfriend and baby's father, who happened to be the grandson of Aaron Neville, who is a legendary singer and songwriter from New Orleans, who was part of the R&B group, the Neville Brothers. But yeah, you know, he actually has he actually has like a outro at the end of this album dedicated to Michelle Tyler, which is his sister's name. But you know, on subsequent albums, the murder songs were about him seeking revenge on that guy for murdering his sister. That's what those songs were about. But this was the first one. But it really wasn't about that. It was about murder in general. But and of course, the Smoke song. This song right here in particular is called Smoke Something. I think this is, in my opinion, man, this is one of the best Smoke songs Mystikal done. I know a lot of people are more familiar with the song that he did on the Ghetto Fabulous album. But I think this one and the one called Still Smoking off of Unpredictable, I think those are like the two best Smoke songs that Mystikal done, man. Like, I mean, what's a Mystikal album without a Smoke song? You know what I'm saying? You gotta have a Smoke song on the Mystikal album. And also, not to forget, I want to mention another single from this album was called Out That Boot Camp Clique, which featured his label mates on Big Boy Records, Black Menace. Black Menace, they were a rap duo, also from New Orleans, and signed to Big Boy Records, man. I've never really heard their albums individually outside of Mystikal. I've never really listened to their stuff, but I do know that those guys they were tight. I don't know if they still made music, but them dudes were tight. Especially the one member named J-Dog. He was the one with the big afro and always wore the sunglasses. That dude right there, he was a beast. I mean, lyrically, man, Mystikal, of course, you know, Mystikal was known for rapping his rapid fast flow. But this dude right here could spit crazy fast. And he does it on Out That Boot Camp Clique. And you know, another thing to note, that Mystikal, him being in the army, that had a profound effect on his style as an artist, as a rapper, because he implemented that a lot in his lyrics. And you can tell it in this song, for instance, Out That Boot Camp Clique, because he's doing like calls and chants like he's in the army, like he's in the military. And you know, of course, you know, once he signed to No Limit, their whole image was based around, you know, military, you know, being the No Limit soldiers. A lot of the songs he did, like that song he did with Snoop Dogg off his album, The Game Is To Be Sold, the True Tank Dogs. Like the hook he did on that song was like him, like a call and response chant, like in the army. You know what I'm saying? So that really did have a profound effect on him. But yeah, man, this is definitely a great album. Not a lot of people really know about this album. You know, most people, when you ask the average person about Mystikal, all they really gonna know is the song Shake Your Ass in danger. Like, I remember when I first bought this album. This is my second time buying this. I actually bought this album years ago, but I let somebody borrow and they messed it up. Man, I found this for $4.99 in the used section at Manifest Records. But anyway, I remember when I first bought this album and I brought it on the bus and was listening to it. I let people look at it, and a lot of people were surprised that this album came out in 1995. They thought Mystikal was a new artist that just came out. And I was like, nah, man, he been making music for a minute. But yeah, a lot of people don't know about this Mystikal. This is Mystikal in the beginning when he was at his rawest. So, you know, and don't get me wrong, Let's Get Ready, that was a dope album too. But for anybody out there that want to get into Mystikal and get into his discography and him as an artist, man, I suggest starting with this, man, because you will get Mystikal at his rawest and at his purest, man. I mean, this is the rawest album he's ever done. I mean, not to say his other albums aren't raw, but I mean, when you listen to this album, you understand what I'm saying. Man, it's got a it still has that underground feel to it. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, this is Mystikal, Mind of Mystikal, released in 1995. I don't know if this album is still in print. I'm not really sure. I don't think this album is still in print, man, because when I first bought this album, that was like back in like 2001 or so. So that's like 13 or 14 years ago. And it was still in print then, but you know, so much has changed since then. You know, a lot of good albums have went out of print. But I do know the albums after that, like Unpredictable and Ghetto Fabulous, I know you can still get those albums. But if you happen to come across this album in your record store, get it, pick it up. It's a gem. You know what I'm saying? If you happen to be digging and you find this, do not hesitate, especially for this price. You better copy it. You won't be disappointed. Don't miss out on this, because this is a very hard album to find. Because I spent a long time trying to find this album to rebuy it, and I just happened to come across it when I was digging, and I was like, you know what? I may not even see this album again, so I'm gonna get it. So definitely, if you find this album, go ahead and copy. And as always, love, peace, and happiness. Hope everyone has a blessed day. Peace.